We are managing the economy better and fulfilling our promises. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up to the Vice President of the Republic. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Would like to acknowledge the presence of all the civil society organizations that were invited, all the special interest groups that are here with us. I see our friends from the Ghana Union Trader Associations. I see our friends from the Abuso Kind Spare Parts Dealers. I see our friends from the Makola Women Association. I see all of you and we recognize your presence. We also recognize the presence of all multilateral organizations. You are all duly recognized. Ladies and gentlemen, let me announce that there is a stand in the foyer. There is water and light refreshment. We are not allowed to bring in water and light refreshment into the auditorium. So if you do feel like having a bottle of water, please quietly, you can rise and the ushers will escort you to provide you with water. At this juncture, like has been explained, the idea is to encourage an interaction between the governed and the government. His Excellency the President believes that we need to bring government closer to the doorstep of the people of Ghana and that we should engage with the people. We do acknowledge our friends from the media, you are here, but this is not the usual media encounter the way we know it. They are the stakeholders and they're the special interest groups. They are the ordinary Ghanaians who are here to engage with the economic management team. We will encourage that we give preference to our brothers and sisters, the ordinary people who are here to also contribute to the exercise of leadership, exercise of governance, and that at the right time, we shall continue to engage with you, our brothers and sisters, in the media. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, may I invite the Honorable Minister for Information, my boss, Kojo Opon Nkrumah, to take over the moderation, the questions and answers.
Thank you, Honorable Pius. We would like to, at this juncture, can I get a microphone, please? Can I get a microphone? Gideon, if you can help me with a microphone. And we would like to, as randomly as possible, if you have a question for the economic management team led by His Excellency the Vice President, it's a good time to raise your hand wherever you are. We'll take a first set of about 6 questions, and then we will proceed to get responses, and then we will take some more. Prof, I see your hand up. I see a second hand up in smoke. 1, 2. Let me take about 2 from here. So I'll take the first 2 from here. I'll take another 2 here and take another 2. Prof, let's start with you. Please introduce yourself for the benefit of those who don't know you and your constituency, and then please, let's hear your question.
My name is Peter Forte with ISA, University of Ghana. Your Excellency, thank you very much for the insightful presentation. I recall last year when I met you, I asked, when are we going to witness the new public lecture? And I won't say your response, or repeat your response here, but I'm excited that it's happening today. My question is very simple. How does all this decent macro figures translate to jobs? How many jobs have we created in the past year or 2? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. There was a gentleman in, yes, that gentleman in the white smoke, yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Kofi Lucas. I represent network of associations of registered NGOs in Ghana. This is a good presentation, Your Excellency. My question is it possible to decentralize the economic management team to the regions and to at least the district? And we should be able to name it Strategic Thinkers Forum. Is it possible?
Thank you for your question. There are about two more I want to take from here. There's a gentleman in an African print shirt here. One more. No, you are too close. I prefer a lady. I prefer a lady. We haven't heard from the ladies. I'll prefer a lady. There's a lady here, so I'll give her the second question, and then I'll come to this third quadrant. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Eric Otiabe, Department of Economics, KNUST. Having listened to the performance of the economy, I want to know what the government is doing to ensure we do not find ourselves back to the IMF extended credit facility issue. There are always doubts about government fiscal prudence in election year. That's the second question. What happened in the past two elections show a lot of fiscal indiscipline. What will this government be doing to ensure the fiscal slippage won't happen again in 2020 at the back of this performance? Thank you.
Thank you. There's a lady who is already standing. So
all right, thank you very much. My name is Eton Amse. I represent the Media General Group. I have two questions. The first one, data from the recent held MPC show that despite a year-on-year growth in revenue as at January 2019, the outturn was slightly below targets for the month. Admittedly, January is too early to draw conclusions about the revenue outlook, but it also showed a continuation of persistent revenue shortfalls. So question is, what has been the impact of the revenue measures implemented last year? And are we too bullish about our revenue projections, which is why we are consistently recording shortfalls? My very last question. Following last year's banking sector cleanup, government had to incur a fiscal cost of at least, and from Dr. Baumia's presentation, 12 billion cedis to close the assets and liabilities gap. With the anticipated cleanup in the microfinance and specialized deposit-taking institution sector, what is government's estimated fiscal cost, and how soon should we expect the green light for the Bank of Ghana to commence the cleanup? Thank you.
Thank you. May I kindly encourage all of us to keep the questions simple, one each, so that we can take as many as possible. So I'll take one gentleman. There's a gentleman there, and I would want to find out if our mothers from the market will also have a question. It can be in any language whatsoever, no problem. We'll be happy to take it. Yes, sir. Please tell us your name and your constituency.
My name is Kwakwen Chibodu. I do marketing for NLA. Your Excellency, let me give you this scenario. My brother and I are given an X amount to start business. I open a container, and then he goes for a half plot and builds chamber and hall about 5. The first visitor I get is from the AMA. They are coming to ask for container fee. And then my next visitor is from GRE, coming to ask for income tax. The irony is that the tax they take for me, government will use it to employ a rent officer to settle cases, to adjudicate cases between my brother's tenants and himself. Meanwhile, he doesn't pay anything. So is the government considering tax on rent? My second thing is, I have my
I'm going to have to stop you there.
No, I have my receipts here. It's about the police. The Interior Minister here, you should listen. Please, please.
Very quickly.
The Interior Minister is here. The Texano police, when we talk about vigilantism, they think it's about political vigilantism. The Texano police in Accra here are practicing vigilantism. AMA says what they are doing is illegal. Okay. But meanwhile, they issue...
Okay, Chief, thank you. I'll take one other question, preferably a female. Preferably a female. Is there a female hand up here? Please help me. If there's a female hand up here, let's take it. We'll keep it as simple as possible so that we can take as many questions as possible. Yes, madam.
Thank you. My name is Adubiasi Amabwaje, Japan Motors. I have two basic questions.
You are from Japan Motors?
Japan Motors.
You deal in cars and parts?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So I have two basic questions. One on the ports. I'm very excited with the reforms on the ports. But my question has to do with the suspense regime and especially with the warehousing. I realize that most of the time when these reforms are done, they are geared towards the home consumption, where you're paying taxes directly from the port. But then the warehousing regime is left out. I'd like to entreat the economic management team to consider that as well, because there are so many challenges, especially when it comes to bond. There are manual processes, and we find ourselves in an automated era where those processes could also be automated. My second question comes to the automobile industry, where we're having quite a number of brands proposing to come in for assembling. I want an assurance from government that it's a capital-intensive venture, and there should be an assurance to the investors that when they put their money there, there isn't going to be any government policy, political interference that's going to draw the carpet under them for the investment to go down the drain. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to defer to the chairman of the EMT. The EMT is in session. So I'll defer to the chairman of the EMT to decide who he calls upon to respond to some of these questions. I just want to quickly go over them. We'll go for another round of 2 questions from each side. Professor Korte is asking, how does this translate into jobs? From the CSOs, Lucas is asking whether EMT can be decentralized. There's a KNUST lecturer who's asking, what do we do to say never again? Media General, there's a lady who is asking impact of the 2018 revenue measures, and then the financial sector cleanup follow-up issues. Can there be tax on rent? Japan Motors wants the suspense regime and warehousing considered, and is asking for assurances that investors in the automobile sector will not be disadvantaged. Your Excellency.
Well, I think that the Minister for Trade and Industry could handle the jobs matter. How all we are doing, how does it translate into jobs? I think the Minister for Finance could take the whole issue of how we are ensuring irreversibility, how revenues are below target, whether we are too bullish, and also the banking sector reform. He has a lot on his plate. Yeah, so we can start with those.
Thank you, Excellency. I think the issue of jobs is fundamental to what we've been listening to this morning. Now, the experience from almost all the matured economies in the world point to one thing, that if you want to create jobs on a sustainable basis, you have to be able to industrialize. And that is why we've embarked on a very aggressive program for industrial transformation, probably never ever seen in this country since independence. You're talking about working with the private sector to ensure that at least in every district in Ghana, that will support the private sector to establish one major industrial processing facility. Beyond that also, we are working with the private sector. Please, the emphasis is not on government starting state enterprises. This is on supporting the private sector to do these things. So apart from the 1D1F, I'm sure you are also aware that in every region, government is supporting, again, the private sector to create these industrial enclaves, which will provide the ecosystem for industries, both local and external, to locate. This cannot happen by chance. You have to create a system that will attract investments into the productive sectors of the economy. That's how you create jobs. Even in the United States of America, they are talking about industrialization, manufacturing, because they need to be able to create jobs. And I could go on and on. We have a very ambitious program for export development, not focusing on only cocoa and gold, but expanding non-traditional exports. That is also going to be an entry point for job creation. But I think, and of course, my brother from the Ministry of Agriculture, planting for food and jobs, it's also another entry point for job creation. But, Excellency, if I may just spend a minute to put the whole essence of what we've been listening today, this morning, and how it relates to job creation. Now, when you inherit an economy that has significant challenges, your primary task is to stabilize the economy. That is the fundamental objective that you have to pursue. And for you to stabilize the economy, you need to be able to restrain expenditure and then ensure that you don't spend what you do not have. And as soon as you pursue such a policy, obviously because you are not embarking on public expenditure, there will be a constriction of jobs. But we have no choice but to do that in order to create the foundation and the environment for the jobs to be created, for investments to come, for the jobs to be created. So I think that what we've done, and I needed to explain this, that we started, of course, we could have started talking about only job creation. But as the Americans will say, it ain't going to happen unless you have a stable macroeconomic environment. Nobody is going to invest in your country, whether domestic or external. So that is why you've seen that there's been a focus on the stabilization of the macroeconomy. You've also realized from this presentation that as we focused on macro stabilization, we also wanted to ensure that certain social services that are fundamental to reduce the burden on the ordinary Ghanaian also being addressed. Free education, national health insurance, all those are public sector investments. So meanwhile, whilst you are doing this, you are taking money away from maybe supporting the private sector, which ordinarily would have increased the level of job creation faster. But as the Vice President said, if you want sustained development in any country, you have no choice but to create a condition that will generate the jobs over a very long period of time. So now that you have 2 years of sustained macroeconomic improvement, because without that improvement, you cannot exit from the IMF. You cannot just go and say, I want to leave, and then they allow you to leave, because you have certain commitments. Now that we've been able to get that clean bill of health, and now that we've been able to address some of the social interventions, this is the time when you are going to see private sector booming, because the foundation has already been created. So if today we are announcing all these measures that would facilitate trade, that would expand investments, then you can understand that it needed to come at this time when we know that the environment has been created. So I thought that I should maintain it. Maybe I can just add on the auto policy.
Yes, please.
Again, when you talk about industrial development, there's been so much focus on one district, one factory. But that is only a small part of what we are doing. We apart from the 1D1F and the industrial parks, I'm sure you've heard about Ghana identifying a number of new strategic growth pillars for Ghana. For over 50 to 70, 80 years, we've been depending on only cocoa and gold. For how long can you as a country depend on only two commodities to fuel your transformation? That's not sustainable. And that's why we've identified new strategic sectors of growth. When the Vice President talks about the integrated bauxite and aluminum industry, that is a major entry point for job creation, upstream, downstream. Iron and steel, another major entry point for job creation. If you have steel and you have, aluminum and you have plastics, which is what comes out of your petrochemical industry, then that's the basis for a very vibrant, I would say, construction environment. But we are going beyond these traditional sectors, and we've talked about the auto sector. Without even putting any public investments into this auto sector, just by policy signaling, this is the first time in, I would say, in Africa, where a government has been able to identify a new sector for growth, and you see such significant response from the major investors in this sector. And so when you hear about Nissan, you hear about VW, Volkswagen, you hear about Renault, you hear about Suzuki, and you hear about Toyota, all at the same time seeking to invest in these sectors, then, my sister, you can be assured that these major players will not respond just to a policy signal if they didn't have confidence in the policy that the government was introducing. So I think that, as the lawyers will say, the matter speaks for itself. Thank you, Excellency.
Minister for Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. And thank you very much for the question. I think the professor from KNUST, I think asked a very important and niggling question that Ghanaians have and investors have. Are we going to have sort of policy reversals which would lead to a return to the IMF? The President has declared that this is the 16th one, and never again are we going to do that. And never again are we going to do that. And I think, what transpired last week when we went to the bond market was an indication of the confidence in the economic management team and the resoluteness of where Ghana is going. But beyond that, knowing that it's a democracy and therefore you might or may not be in government, we went ahead to legislate this. And this is where the Vice President was indicating that we have the Fiscal Responsibility Rule, the Fiscal Advisory Council, and the Financial Stability Council, so that we begin to anchor ourselves. And in that was the limitations of 5% for the deficit and a positive primary balance to ensure that the rate of accumulation of debt is reduced. It also means that we will not come into government in 2017 and inherit a deficit of 9.3. So whatever we do, you then operate within a band of reasonableness, irrespective of the government that is in play. I think that's very important and crucial. In addition to that is also the establishment of the Economic Planning Coordinating Committee at the Ministry of Finance, to be chaired by both the Governor and the Minister of Finance. And in that will be to ensure that we follow through with policies that we intend to keep and constantly give confidence to the market as to where we are going. I can assure you that never again would we go back. On the issue of 2020, I saw a cartoon showing the Vice President going to India to kind of hold down the city. We don't have to do that. We actually have the senior minister who was one of the first ministers to ensure that in election year, he actually did not go into a deficit. So with his presence, wisdom, and encouragement, we won't do that. But even before that, as the Vice President mentioned, we are pushing ahead of an aggressive infrastructure plan, the Sino-Hydro transaction that he brought to the country. Which means that we don't have the pressures in 2020 to do anything untoward. And that is how we are looking to manage this. On the question of the outturn for our revenues, interesting. We do encourage ourselves to overperform. But even if you look at what we inherited at, I think maybe it was 31 billion odd for revenue in 2016, and we are now at a 60 billion total target. So even this period in which we beat ourselves down, we are almost about 90% of where we are, whilst revenues actually have moved from about 52, whilst expenditures have moved from about 52 to 70. which means a 40% increase. So you can see, what we are trying to do with managing the economy. But clearly, there's a lot more to be done with revenue. Because on the other hand, if you look at where we are at about 12% of GDP, which is way below our peer countries, which should be anywhere from 15 to 18. So that in there, is another maybe odd 20 billion that we can get. Not necessarily from GRA, but maybe with taxing rent and with all of us in the informal market, paying. I think April 15th is tax day. I wonder how many of you have filed your personal taxes. and that all goes to the issue of the citizens' responsibility and the Republic and what we must each do and to participate in this transformation agenda. With regards to the banking issue, yes, we do intend to tackle the microfinance one. I think the estimate is around 953 odd million CDs that we actually have put in an escrow account to be able to tackle that. And then there's the SDIs, which is the savings and loans institutions, etc. And approximate is about 3 billion that it will cost us. So we need a plan to get through that. Mr. Vice President, thank you.
Thank you. Senior Minister, Minister for Planning, go ahead.
Mr. Vice President, I think what the Finance Minister didn't tell the people about this fiscal responsibility rule is that if he violates it, or any of us attempts to violate that 5% rule, he will be sanctioned by Parliament. So it means that if you are going beyond 5%, you have to face the law in the House. And that can mean maybe not jail, but at least, just close to something very terrible. So it is actually, there is a sanction regime to prevent the finance minister or even any other minister who will actually push him to go beyond the 5% to really be brought to the House for sanctioning. And we think that one will actually settle the 2020. There will be no excess of the deficit over the 5% that has been fixed. Thank you.
Senior Minister, the question was whether we should decentralize the EMT.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President and Chairman of the EMT. There is always one chief examiner per subject. The reason is that you want to ensure consistency. Now, if you decentralize the EMT in terms of persons, you are going to create a problem. What would be the equivalent of the Minister of Finance if you decentralize in the northern region or you decentralize in the Volta region? What is important is that if you listen to Professor Mwaku very carefully, he said we invite agencies, we invite line ministers, we invite the private sector to listen to their problems and assist them resolve it in respect of promoting the economy. So we members of the EMT should be ready to move to the regions and sit and let people appear before us and listen to local problems so that we can, using the same brain power, find answers to the problems in a decentralized manner. We have been sitting so far only in Accra, and I think it's a warning that we should decentralize our sitting so that we come close to the problems and resolve them. So I think I have to whisper to the Vice that we must be ready to move. It is a very important suggestion because some problems are local and you may never get close to them if you are always in Accra. So yes, we decentralize the sitting, but not the membership.
Thank you very much, Senior Minister. That's why he has more gray hair than us. Yes, I think there was a question on the suspense regime for warehousing. It's from a lady from Japan Motors. It's something that we are looking at. I think we are examining that as well as part of all the reforms. So there wouldn't be be left behind. So we can take the next set of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And while we do that, let me kindly ask the controllers to activate all the microphones so that we don't have to have our members come up. I'm going to take two, and then we'll go for responses. There are also persons upstairs. Do I have a microphone upstairs? Okay, so while I get a microphone upstairs, let me start. I will come upstairs and take two questions. Let me take two questions from this side. There's a gentleman in suit here. There is another gentleman in an African print shirt. The ladies, where are you? Where? With the permission of the chairman, I'll come to you. Yes, sir.
Hello, yeah. Your Excellencies, thank you for this nice and good delivery. I'm Kofi Obiang, representing Ghana Institution of Surveyors and Quantity Surveyor for that matter. The wind of digitization is blowing. And if my memory serves me right, it looks like something was left out. I would like to find out when this digital revolution affects the infrastructure, or for that matter, the construction industry as a whole. When will we see a full-blown e-procurement, e-contract or project administration, and e-payment, such that once work is executed, you will sit in the comforts of your home and your accounts will be credited for work, duly and valuable work done. Thank you.
Thank you. There was another hand up there. So you're asking about digitization of the entire value chain. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hello. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. My name is Mr. Amujesi, the Vice Chairman of General Agricultural Workers Union, but from the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. Yeah, His Excellency's presentation on the 100,000 plus affordable housing, which the government is currently about to roll out. My concern is with actually the issue about the land, the primary use of the land first before the affordable housing. Because currently there are government lands that are being used, like in case of CSI, they are being used for research purposes. But before we say Jack, the lands are being just cleared just for affordable housing. We are not saying affordable housing is not good. It's good. We all come from our various homes. But why not maybe take the house to a hinterland or a rural area such that you can develop the area to stem rural-urban migration? Than to have the land that is already being used for research.
I'm sorry, let me interrupt
being bulldozed. Yes, sir.
So specifically, your question is
that the primary use of the land must be first considered with the stakeholders who are already on the land. They must have some discussion and amicably settle it, because a lot of government lands are being used for other purposes, and sometimes you find encroachers, private entities going in between the government and the agencies and then taking the land for private purposes. That is my appeal.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you.
There's a gentleman here. So I'll give you the microphone, and then I'll go for another gentleman in an African shirt at the back. I'm being biased towards African shirts.
Thank you very much. So, Chairman, I'm a freight forwarder, and I've been in the business for over 25 years. I must say today I'm so excited about the presentation we just made. And it's been something we've been talking about for some time now. And the effects on our businesses, I just can't imagine that. But at the same time, I'd like to use this forum to advise freight forwarders to also meet the government midway. The concessions being made by government, for example, reducing the examinations from 90% to 10%. I'm very sure some people will try to take some advantage of my goods not being examined and maybe describe or add some other quantities into their containers. I think that when you see some of these things, please don't be discouraged. Let us rather go ahead and punish them so that we will still maintain this 10%. It is something that has been on the drawing board for a very long time, but then we go, then we come back, we go, then we come back because we are not too sure, or there will be a report that we have lost millions of cedis and we will never go forward. But please, let's not be deterred. Let us rather put some measures in place and punish those who go against this. Mr. Chairman, Oliver asked for more. You would love that, the rate of exchange. Can we peg it for the next 3 months, for the next 6 months, for the next 1 year, so that our dear importers can plan? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I called on the gentleman, yes, that gentleman there. So you would take the next question, and then I'll go to the right before going upstairs. Can we take the microphone here? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Henry Anim Somwa. I'm a concerned farmer. I'm really impressed with the brains we have on the economic management team, and especially their background in economics. I'm a student of economic history, and countries that has transformed using agriculture has gone through a phase we are in today. And the transformation and the wind blowing, we need to also look at agriculture. Fundamentally, if I use price support, input price support, to support agriculture modernization, the economic management will understand this language. The deadweight losses would always be higher than the consumer welfare. Secondly, it is going to be difficult for financial management. And I think Ghana has experienced that since 2008. So my question is, what transformation are we doing in agriculture to ensure that the gains from planting for food and jobs will not be eroded, but rather would lead to private sector investments that would modernize agriculture for me and my younger brothers? Thank you.
Thank you. I see the Greek minister busily writing. There's a lady who who caught my eye. Yes, madam. And then I'll be biased towards one more woman on that side. So please let's give her the microphone.
Hello, Your Excellency, the Vice President. My name is Christiana Lai from Makola Market Traders Association. Yesterday, my colleagues gave me a long list of questions, but it seems you've answered all the questions. I have a long list here, but I wish to thank you very much. And I'm pleading with you that tomorrow by this time, all that you've promised should be fulfilled. Thank you very much. And I'm going back to tell them that as Mpape Biayati, Oje, Oje, Oje. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm looking for one more woman on that side. One more woman on that side. One more woman on that side. If I can't find a woman, there's a woman here before I go upstairs. Can we please, madam, please come down. Do I have a microphone upstairs? Okay, so let me take one while I wait for her to come down. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Honorable Opan Nkrumah. Mr. Vice President, thank you very much for the delivery. My name is Prince Ishmael Dima from Sisala East in Upper West region. When you were delivering, and I know the people of Upper West are so happy when you mentioned the road network, and you mentioned $1.5 billion. The two Sisala districts, since the inception of 1992, have been the most worst in terms of road network. We have complained bitterly in the past government, but we have not seen any improvement. And when you mentioned the 1.5, I knew, even though I'm not there, they are happy and dancing. We want to beg you that when the road network is about to begin, consider the people of Sisala East and Sisala West. We are terribly affected by the road network. Our food delivery is bad. Mr. Opan Nkrumah, let me add that since 1992, in the 2016, we went back home as the youth of our area, delivered for the first time the 2 seats to the MPP. And today,
your question.
Yes, we want our roads to be worked on. That is my question. The second one, let me finish. The second one is the Takoradi. I work in Takoradi, so I want to plead for Takoradi. When you come to Power Grant, the road, there's a very huge traffic, and we want an interchange to be put around the park one. Thank you very much.
You're asking for Sisala and Takrady at the same time.
Yes.
There's a woman upstairs, so I'll go to her after you. Let's hear you, madam. Yeah.
Thank you very much. His Excellency, I'm Ejewa from Okanshi, Wisak. And what we want to ask...
Ejewa, what is WISAG?
WISAG, Wholesalers, Importers, Shop Union of Ghana. So it comprises importers, shop owners, and wholesalers. Our problem about the duty is the pegging of the dollar. If after all this and the dollar is not pegged, I think when the dollar goes up, we will still face the same problems we've been through. So if the AMT can work on that for us. And secondly, there is a new, there is this state warehousing that is being put on our duty papers. The way it's calculated before, if your container comes in, it's quoted like 75 Ghana for a 40-footer and 40 Ghana for a 20-footer. But now the way this state housing charges is being calculated, I think it's still going to add value to whatever the CCVR will come up to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam, I'll come to you, and then I'll come for responses before the last 2 rounds. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. My name is Sena Dake from the Institute of Chartered Accountants, Ghana. My question is, when will we have a woman financial management brain as part of the economic management team? Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, in Chi, they say, Ochamia Onima Samuka, Osenana Wasuma. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. So we sort of have a number of questions which we can. I'll go to the Minister for Food and Agriculture to talk about how to ensure that we will not lose any gains from the planting for food and jobs.
Thank you, Excellency. Dr. Somwa is a concerned farmer, he says. But I know that he's more than a concerned farmer, very much into agriculture. The question is how to protect the gains made through planting for food and jobs that the EMT is very much concerned about. Dr. Somwa, I can assure you that the commitment not only of the EMT, but of this government to agriculture is total. I spent 8 years in a position in Parliament talking on behalf of our party in Parliament. And I saw the kinds of policies which were adopted which did not get us anywhere with our agricultural performance. This government has come on and is tackling the problems at its roots. That is to say, the majority of farmers who are only small farmers, 1 hectare, 2 hectares, they are the ones that we have targeted to support initially. The fact of the matter is that in terms of the improved seed and fertilizer, only about 10% of Ghanaian smallholders do use these 2 major inputs. And that is one of the reasons why Ghana has one of the lowest productivity in agriculture. You take yields of any crop, including our own cocoa, we were doing very badly. And this is why this government has decided that we'll tackle the problem with the smallholders who still produce over 90% of our agricultural output. And not just by rhetoric. You look at the amount of resources that are going into the smallholder sector compared to previous years. You cannot even begin to compare. That we have, for the first time, 2017, when we came on, were able to distribute over 250,000 metric tons of fertilizer to smallholders. And The highest before then had been only 150,000, and this figure has been going up in the 2 years since. That this year we are targeting over 350 to 380,000 metric tons of fertilizer distribution to these farmers, and also to increase the amount of seeds, improved seeds that we are giving to these farmers. And within that, we are emphasizing specific crops, like rice, for instance, which is costing us nearly $1.5 billion to import. We are determined that in the next 3-4 years, we'll no longer import rice. We're targeting it both in the traditional areas of the savannah and in the forest areas of the 6 regions in the southern part of the country, where there's huge potential for rice, which has been lying there unexploited. This government is doing something very fundamental about that. So all these are, I would say, irreversible, because you can see the results. We are exporting over 130,000 metric tons of food last year to our neighboring countries. 17 different crops, from fruits to plantain to anything. We are just, it's going up and up, all the way to Nigeria, to Niger, to Burkina Faso, and so on. Our challenge now is, how are we going to add value to the surpluses, the management of the surpluses? We anticipated this. This is why the government decided that we are going to establish 80 warehouses, construct 80 warehouses around the country in the food-producing areas. These warehouses, hopefully by June, July, they will be ready to be handed over to us for us to use with the buffer stock company and so on. So we are adding to infrastructure, we are expanding the distribution to farmers, and all these, and as the Vice President mentioned, we have established the stock, the commodity exchange, which is a novelty. We are establishing, at the moment, there's a draft bill going to our cabinet for consideration for a multi-crop production improvement authority, which will take care of the development of 6 major tree crops, so that in the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years, we will be receiving more revenue from these new crops than cocoa for the first time since Tete Kwashi brought cocoa to Ghana. All these are indications of the kinds of commitment that the government, the EMT, and the government itself, the president, is very particular that there must be this permanent transformation in our agriculture as a basis for the industrial revolution that we're expecting to happen in order to lift our people out of poverty. So that is the commitment that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think someone from CSR asked about the primary use of land in terms of affordable housing, and also the Ghana Institute of Surveyors asked about construction industry and whether we'll do e-procurement and e-payment as part of the digitization. Minister for Monitoring, do you want to attempt those?
Hello. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. The two issues are e-procurement and then the land issue. I think that my friend from the CSI IR is right. Government should, and I think government should negotiate with the primary landowners before they do these huge acquisitions for affordable housing. My understanding, though, is that the emphasis on the affordable housing is going to be in the rural areas, which will be easier for you. On the e-procurement, I think the Minister of Finance may be able to answer that better. I have second-hand information, but I know they're working.
Yes. I know that the PPA has begun the implementation of an e-procurement system, but I think what they also want to see is the digitization of the payment process for various certificates that they submit. And I'm sure the Ministry of Finance can look into that. There were a couple of questions on the exchange rate at the ports. I think we can look at that. Sino-Hydro, Sisala districts should not be ignored. Similarly with the Takoradi Power Grant interchange. You know that we are going to also be cutting the sword as well as the Tamale interchange to the PTC interchange in Takoradi. I don't know whether that is the same as the Power Grant. Minister for Roads, is that the same as the Power Grant? There is a PTC interchange I can remember, which is on the list of roads we are going to. I don't know if it is the same. That's the Power Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Yes, if we cut the sword for the PTC interchange, it will stretch to that side. So the problem is talking about will be resolved. Okay. And after 10, from Tamale, the next sword cutting is Takrani, the PTC interchange. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Minister for Road. He's been working tirelessly, I must say, to make sure this whole Sino-Hydro happens. And I want to thank you for it. He's been really tireless at it. He's been working very, very hard. I appreciate what he's doing. The state warehousing calculation, we will look at that as part of what we are looking at the ports. So we'll look at it. Let's take another set of questions. Yeah, the senior minister will say something.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I think a lady posed a question about the implementation of these measures. It's a very important question. Now, if you ask for a benchmark price to be reduced by 50%, people are to implement it. People already are taking advantage of the 100% and benefiting directly from it. If you ask for 10% of containers to be open instead of 90%, there are people who are interested in opening 90% for whatever gain comes to them. And therefore, we need to have in place a special task force to supervise the implementation of these measures, and we shall surely do so, so that people will not set aside these guide rules we are putting in place. Because of personal benefits, we must have a task force to implement these. And lady, I can assure you, we will do same. Thank you very much.
I think there was also a question on when there will be a woman on the EMT. The advice has been well received. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellency, I'm not reporting, but I've seen the GRA boss and the customs boss here. So you may want to give them some instructions right afterwards. I'm going to take two each as we go around in the final set of questions. I'm going to start from here. Yes, I see. Yes, sir, you. One more, and then I'll take you in the African print. I've been biased towards the ladies enough, so I'll take the two of you. Yeah. Yes, I see your hand in the African print here, and then I'll take the man in smoke here.
Well, I'm holding the mic, and I'm here.
Hold on, sir. You don't get to interrupt like that. Hold on. We'll go in that order. So let's start with you, sir. I'll come to you.
Thank you. And thank you, Your Excellency, for this very comprehensive overview of the past 2 years of the government. Mine is actually a call for action, and it has to do with the trade facilitation aspect.
Can you please introduce yourself, sir? We want to know
My name
you.
is Ziad Hamwi. I am the National President of the Borderless Alliance for Ghana, and I speak for the advocacy groups who deal with regional integration and trade facilitation. And I would like to bring your attention an update from yesterday, as the Parliament of the Gambia has ratified the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, bringing the total ratifications to the 22 number, which is the required number for the entry into force of that agreement, which has the potential to create an African market of 1.3 billion people and up to $3 trillion in GDP. And so I am bringing this to the attention of the High Council of the Economic Management Team due to the fact that last year Ghana has placed its bid to host the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And the reason I'm bringing this to the attention of His Excellency is the fact that we as civil society organizations and advocacy groups are very prepared to work towards ensuring the success of the bid to host that secretariat in Ghana in order to support the transformation of Ghana into the preferred destination for doing business on the continent.
And so your question, sir, your question?
It was a call for action, and so it is an appeal to further and to collaborate. Thank you, sir.
Grateful. There's a gentleman in a blue kaftan down here. There's a gentleman in a blue kaftan here. Don't worry, we'll come back for some more questions. So there's a gentleman in a blue kaftan, and then I'll come to the middle, then I'll come here and go up.
Your Excellency, Mr. Vice President, my question is about the health insurance. I'm Nana Onyame from Guta, Kumasi. The government is doing well, catching up duties and all those things. But when I clear my goods from the port, I supply to the hospitals. And the national health insurance to pay the hospitals so that they also pay me. They don't pay. So you also intend not to supply again. And if a patient goes to the hospital, they'll write even APC or common gloves to go and buy from the counter. They bring it to my shop. Metal gloves, you know. But the examination gloves is packed. In one pack is 100 pieces inside. So you can't open it and give them 2 or 3. So you're supposed to buy the whole packet. And it will go waste. So I'm pleading to the government, if they have digitized the NHS card, they should also pay the suppliers or the hospitals so that they can also pay the suppliers so that the government business will go on smoothly, as the Kufu administration was doing before. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a gentleman in smoke here. There's a gentleman in smoke here. There's a gentleman in smoke here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Your Excellency, the Vice President, and the Economic Management Team, I think let me applaud you for the job done. Yesterday we were in a crunch meeting. I'm Said Momin from Association of Small Scale Industries. Yesterday, after getting the invitation from the Ministry of Trade, we had a crunch meeting. There were so many questions that I was coming to ask. But when I came down and saw what was happening, all the questions are dropped. Because why I'm saying that is, we create about 70 to 80% job creation in the country, the SM, micro, medium, and small enterprises. And for that matter, it is something that we have to look at it very serious. If actually you want to create more jobs, those taking the other jobs, as I'm standing, I have about 25 people, workers under me, some 10, some 5 and 3 and other things. So we are looking at it that our only headache as at now, even though this may not connect with your decision, is the MMSE policy that is on the drawing board. We want Ghana to get it.
For those who don't know MMSE policy,
medium and micro, medium and small enterprises policy, which Ghana have not yet gotten. So I'm pleading with you, the government, to do that. And this today, the voiceless have now got the opportunity to say something. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's a gentleman in an African print shirt at the back, so I'll take him. I'll come here and then I'll go upstairs. We'll take responses and come for the final round.
Your Excellency, the Vice President, I know we are aware that in Ghana, we have religious bodies, which is now we call Ghana Conference of Religion for Peace. I would suggest that when there is a time you sit down to see certain things in Ghana, I would plead that you should think of the religious bodies, the Ghana Conference of Religions for Peace, GCROP, and I will be very happy about that. So I suggest that this economic management team, I would like to see the religious bodies on it.
Also, for you ambushed us. But I'll go back, yes, to the gentleman in the African print shirt standing. Then I'll take 2 here. I'll go upstairs and take 2.
Your Excellency, the economic management team, I think I will speak on the exchange rate depreciation.
Can we have some silence in the hall, please?
I just want to find out that when you travel outside the country, and I believe all of us are very much aware, it's very, very difficult to change dollars in those respective countries. For example, even South Africa, you cannot change dollars into rand there. A lot of countries are practicing this. What can Ghana do to also avert some of these problems? Again, are we regulating the black market operators also? How are we regulating them? It's very sad that we go to Tudu and other areas, you find them selling these hard currencies on the streets of Accra as if we're selling, excuse me to say, tomatoes. How are we going to regulate their activities? If we're able to even regulate them as well, we might even have some sort of taxes from them, because it looks as if all of them are running away from the tax net. So what are we doing to regulate their activities? Okay. Again, is it possible we can change or review the 100% repatriation of interest, 100% of interest of profits in the GIPC, that's the Ghana Investment Promotion Center Act? If it's possible, then let's find a way, because most of these corporate companies are repatriating their profits out of our shores. And even if you are talking about repatriation of profit, how are we even checking them? Possibly even their principal or their capital might also be part of the repatriation as part of their profit.
Thank you, sir. I want to take a few more questions. Is that the Guta president? Okay, so let me take him. Is there a lady here? One more. Yes, sir, I'll come to you. I see my friends from the media houses showing their hands. We'll try and give you some questions at the end. We want to hear from the various groups first, so we'll try. Yes, sir.
Your Excellency, your government indeed is a listening one. Whatever you said here was as if you were saying the same things that I've been saying on air. It means that whatever thing I say on air, it registers in your head.
But who are
and
you?
Then
Please
you find
introduce
solution.
yourself properly.
I am the president of Ghana Union of Traders Association, Dr. Joseph Obing. Your Excellency, you have given us paperless system which saves us time-related cost. And now you have given us real value cost reduction. And we do appreciate. We thank you and your ever accessible EMT. We thank the president himself for this kind gesture. We thank the Council of State, through whose intervention we've gotten this stage. A great lesson learned here is that positive dialogue is the key to good governance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is there a question following that so that I can take a few more?
Okay, let me run it. I wanted to say something.
Very quickly, there are several questions.
Okay, what I want us to do is, as soon as possible, arrange with customs and GRE to make out the modalities so that we can quick start it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'll take one quick one. There's a gentleman in white here. There's another gentleman in white here, in a white African print shirt. Gideon, there's a gentleman in white. Let me take him, and then we would take responses and come for the final round. Okay? I'll come up to you upstairs. Don't worry.
Thank you very much. My name is Siawan Padu from Abosoka, co-chairman of Abosoka Spare Parts Association. Your Excellency, on behalf of traders from Abosoka, we say thank you very much for having listened to this brilliant presentation. Indeed, you are a listening government. But I have one challenge. That is foreigners issue. We've been talking, quarreling, fighting over the years about foreigners who are taking over our businesses. Retail trading. When you go to Kumasi Swami, Circle, Abosokai, Okaishi, Sunyan, all over. If your rent is due, you cannot take over the shop again because the foreigner is there marking time, taking over your businesses. And we are not saying the foreigners should go to back to their countries because they do a whole bunch of money. So please, Your Excellency, what measures are you going to put in place so that we, the retailers, will do our trading or remain in the business forever? Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll take responses, and then I'll come round for the final round. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. I think the Minister for Trade and Industry can handle the free trade agreement, Continental Free Trade Agreement, and also the retail market. Thank you. President.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. First, let me state that one of the most critical challenges confronting our continent, and by extension Ghana, is the low level of intra-regional trade. Currently, intra-European trade is estimated at about 68%. Europe is around 53%. Asia is around 46%. And regrettably, intra-African trade is around 12%. And without equivocation, it is clear that if you want to develop, you first start with your regional trade and then you use that as a basis for integrating into the global market. So one of the most significant developments on our continent is the establishment of the Continental Free Trade Area. So Ghana and 54 other countries have signed a new agreement to create a single market for Africa, which is probably the most significant development since the establishment of the African Union. Now, this is going to create a market of a population of course, 1.2 billion. It is estimated that over $35 billion increase in volume of trade would occur with the establishment of this Continental Free Trade Area. And already 53 countries out of the 55 countries have signed on to this agreement. But the agreement requires 22 countries to ratify the agreement for it to become operationally effective. And so today, I think we all need to celebrate as a continent, because the 22nd country, which is Gambia, has now ratified the agreement, which technically speaking makes it possible for us now to activate the new Continental Free Trade Agreement for Africa. It means that all the things that we are talking about in Ghana, expanding our industrial base, this is going to be an opportunity for us to sell to other parts of Africa duty-free, quota-free. And I think that we, as a country, this is good news. And hopefully, if we are selected as the Secretariat for the Continental Free Trade Agreement, then it will also become another feather in the cap of our country. So I think this was the point that was being made by the first speaker. Now, with respect to the issue of foreigners, the Ghana Union of Traders Associations and the Ministry of Trade and Industry have been working actively on this matter. And I'm sure that the fact that there's not that much tension in the retail trade arena, I think it's a reflection of the contribution of GUTA in particular in supporting government to find a way of addressing the influx of foreigners in our retail trade on a sustainable basis. Now, I can say also that this matter now is before Parliament. Parliament has established a joint committee of the Select Committee on Trade and Industry and Tourism, and then Defense and Security, for this matter now to be interrogated on a more permanent basis. So I can assure you that it is under very serious and active consideration, and hopefully that will find a permanent solution to this challenge. Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you. I think that there was also a question on making sure that we are up to date with national health insurance, any delays. So I'm sure the Minister of Finance will take that on advice and make sure if there are any delays, we don't have them. The Senior Minister, can you respond to the whole issue of our exchange rate regime being a bit too loose? People can just buy Forex or sell Forex, unlike in South Africa. What would you have to say on that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. That observation is really true and very important. Yesterday, I tried to change dollars in Dakar into their currency. My passport was taken, details were taken from the passport, etc., etc. And you couldn't just put the dollar there and be given the equivalent in the CFA. In Ghana, however, people are trading in our currency and in the dollar without any supervision and regulation. And this is undermining the economy. And I think Bank of Ghana, the EMT, should sit together with the security agents to look at the current laws governing this exchange rate business. Forex bureaus are governed by and controlled by Bank of Ghana, and they have rules of operation. These people are not forex bureaus, but they are operating as if there are no rules and regulations in Ghana. And Mr. Vice President, I think this is wrong. And we should handle the national security so that we apply the rules which all other countries do. When you go to a country and you want to exchange dollars for that currency and vice versa, you must go through some regimentation. In Ghana, it is not so. And therefore, it is not right. And I think your observation is well in that. Members of the EMT has been talking about it. But we need that cooperation between the EMT, Bank of Ghana, and the security agencies to put a stop to this illegal business. It is illegal because they are not forest bureaus. So I think it's a warning to us, and we take your challenge and assure you that by the middle of this month, today's date, 3rd, by middle of this month, Bank of Ghana and the National Security Agency will come out with some guidelines so that we take steps to protect our currency. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Senior Minister. One of the things about the French countries around us is that they are very formalized in terms of identity. Everybody has a unique identity, and you cannot do any type of transaction without your national ID number attached to it. In a situation where we are so informal, it's a bit more difficult, whether it's SIM card registration or forex cases and so on. But I believe that once we conclude the national ID card, our system will be more enforceable with all of these regulations. I think the religious bodies, the Ghana Conference for Religions for Peace, I think you are requesting a membership of the EMT. The senior minister will also handle it.
I think the EMT members must be happy that the religious group want to join us. And I think it shows that they admire the type of job we are doing and the areas we are covering. So will the Ghana Institution of Engineers, so will the Ghana Bar Association, so will many of the other professional and religious bodies want to. And it cannot be done that way. What we do and what we have done is to also invite some of you to meet us to discuss your concern and to take your input in managing the economy. I think the secretary to the EMT is here. I will let him take your details, and I think along the line we invite you to meet the whole group, and we'll continue to dialogue with you and any other group who are interested in having an input into the EMT. Look, on Ghana Beyond Aid, I have received 25 memoranda, well researched and well written by Ghanaian interested groups. They are not members of the Committee on Ghana Beyond Aid, but they are contributing effectively to the committee's work. And therefore, we are appealing to all professional bodies who may have an input into the work of the EMT in one way or the other to show interest and to write to us. And we surely appropriately invite you and have discussions with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Senior Minister. I think one person on the EMT who has been so forceful on the role of faith-based institutions is our Minister for Finance. So, Minister for Finance, I think this is really your area.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I guess it's, Mr. Vice President, this is an encouragement for, religious leaders to get into politics, because you have to be a member of parliament or a minister to be on the EMT, and it's encouraged. But obviously, as you can see, we take religious views very seriously, because that's 90% or so of the country. And there's at no point time that we undervalue that relationship. And on my advisory board at the ministry, we do have representation from the religious bodies. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister of Finance. I also want to share, for example, when we were in a session, we put together a team to look at value for money and wanted to see how we could standardize the construction of schools, of hospitals, and of roads. We're looking for institutions that were able to get value for money, and we invited, for example, the Church of Pentecost to come in and share, because they seem to complete a lot of buildings without spending too much money. And they came in and gave the EMT very, very good input. And I think the senior minister who led that Value for Money committee, they finished the work with the input, and we are going to be very soon announcing standardized buildings for schools across the country, standardized bills of quantities, schools, hospitals, and some roads, so that we can bring down the cost of this construction. And we are also going to be, thanks with that committee, announcing mandatory use of local building materials in some of those constructions, so that we can use a lot. So the churches have a lot of, and the religious organizations have a lot to contribute to our development, and we will keep listening. Thank you very much. So we can take a next set of questions.
Excellency, we're going to take the final list of questions. I've seen some of the media colleagues with their hands up, so let me quickly give them an opportunity. Yes, Mr. Timing. Yes, Mr. Youngson. Dr. Kofiamo, you are reorganizing football. You have a question? Okay, so I'll give you an opportunity, and then I'll take one final one, and then I'll go upstairs. Yes, Kweku.
His Excellency, my name is Kweku Timing. I believe one of the ministers who have not spoken today is John Peter Amewu, and if it comes to energy, the key issue is Dumso. I want to find out, His Excellency, we are a beautiful country that generates over 4,000 megawatts. We have the capacity. However, we use just about 2,700. So how come my power intermittently goes off? And then I have the assurance that I can also export to other neighboring countries. When I put the mathematics together, I simply don't understand. So, Honorable Minister, please come and answer these questions for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Youngson has his hand up. We'll take one question from him. We'll go to Dr. Amo, and then we'll go here before going upstairs. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you.
My name is Kojo Youngson. I'm from JoyNews. Earlier, when you were taking us through some of the figures of how the economy is looking, I was alarmed to notice that we had spent about 3.2% of our GDP bailing out banks. But what alarmed me even more was the knowledge that those who presided over this catastrophe are still walking around. Some of them are still being paid by us, the taxpayers, whose money went into bailing out these banks. So can you please tell us what you plan to do about this and why we haven't seen any action against these individuals so far? Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Amo, you had your hand up.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that in the opening prayers by the Reverend, he made a very fundamental philosophical statement that let's be the generation that lay the foundation for the transformation of our nation. Now, sometimes you hear people are saying there's no money in the system and all that. But I think this morning, the policy direction of the government seems to be heading in the right direction. There are certain things that take time to manifest the positives of that policy. And therefore, if we are going to be the generation that lay the foundation for the transformation of our nation, I think some form of patience is required. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Do you have a microphone up there? You still don't have a microphone? Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you for the
very
opportunity.
Final one down here, and then I'll go upstairs.
My name is Dr. Emmanuel Ojoefri. I'm a development finance economist. And my question is on the level of capital expenditure. Your Excellency said, one of this government's key criticisms of the former government has been the low level of capital expenditure. However, we work a lot with data in economics, and as reported in the budget, we can tell that your administration really much has not fared any better in a sense, and I'd like to find out your response on this.
Fared better in which area exactly?
Capital expenditure.
CAPEX. Okay. All right. There's a lady in the T-shirt upstairs. I'll take you first, and then I'll take one more. Kojo, is your microphone working? Is that microphone working? Very quickly, very quickly. Your Excellency, let me come to you as we take responses to the final set of questions. We'll just take those last two subsequently. So let me come to you as we take responses.
Okay. Minister for Energy, there's a question on Dumsor. Why are we having our power lights off?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you,
saw on the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, and also thank the gentleman who asked this very brilliant question. Why huge install capacity of 4,700 and over with a peak demand of just about 2,600, yet still we have intermittent shortfall in supply? That's a very brilliant question. Mr. Vice President, our energy mix in this country cuts across hydro, renewable in terms of sun, gas, which is the thermal, and also light crude oil, and also heavy fuel and diesel. In our current tariff that we are paying, the tariff has been driven largely because out of this energy mix, large proportion being priced on gas. If we are going to turn on a plant that is going to be fed on heavy fuel or light crude oil or diesel, that will bring an added cost to the existing tariff regime. Largely about 660 megawatts of our plants relied on gas. So when we shut down the gas plants at Takoradi to make provisions for the tie-in that we are undertaking, it means all these plants that are relying on gas, Ameri, TICO, KTTB, will no longer have access to feed on gas. But what we have done is through the benevolence of the Ministry of Finance, sufficient fund was made available to procure light crude oil, diesel, heavy fuel for plants that relied on both gas and fuel. Some plants are dualized. When the plant is dualized, what it means is that it can feed both on light crude or gas. Now, all these plants that I've mentioned do not have that capacity. They only rely on gas. So the shortfall we are seeing currently, it's as a result of the migration largely from the gas-fired plant to the light crude, heavy fuel, and then also the diesel plant. We have sufficient diesel currently in the stock of Tema Oil Refinery and most of this plant. I want to assure Ghanaians and also all the listeners gathered here, the participants, that first of all, we want to apologize for this intermittent supply, but we are never back to the era where we have consistent, persistent shortfall in supply. We are in an era that there is installed capacity available, but what we need to do is to change that installed capacity to availability. As a government, we continue to pay for gas that is available but cannot be used. As government, we continue to pay for heavy fuel to fire a plant that can equally rely on gas for cheaper source of fuel. And so what His Excellency has directed we do is to move the plants that are feeding on heavy fuel from Tema to Takoradi. The question one will ask is, if you have sufficient gas in Takoradi, why would you go and put a plant in Tema? I don't want to answer those questions. Ghanaians should be able to answer it. If I have the opportunity, then I will not put the plant in Tema. I will put the plant near to the source of gas. Because when the gas travels from Takoradi to Tema, it is also not free. It costs about $2.7 dollars per MMBTU just for the tariff. For 1 month, the traveling cost of gas will cost this country in a range of about $60 million US. That is just the tariff for the volume of gas that you ship from Takoradi to Tema. The best thing, therefore, is that to avoid this cost, let us move the plant from Tema to Takoradi. This is a very good management idea. Mr. Vice President, the stranded gas, as I have talked about, also means that you have gas. But again, you are feeding on other expensive fuel. So what do? Because some of the plants are still in Tema that you cannot move. The only ones we are moving are the mobile ones. There are some that are fixed. You cannot move them. What do you have to do? Okay, those that are fixed, let's therefore move some gas from Takoradi to the fixed plant. That again is cheaper because it reduces the cost more than 7%. And so it calls for what we call the tie-in. The tie-in just allows us to be able to flow gas. Currently, we can flow gas from Nigeria through Tema to Takoradi, but you cannot flow gas in the reverse direction. So the current tie-in just allows us to move the stranded gas to Tema. By doing so, we have to stop the flow of gas. The stoppage of the flow of gas take away almost about 650 megawatts of power plant. This explains the intermittent shortfall that we have witnessed. Fortunately, Mr. Vice President, I have an opportunity to visit the site, and I can assure the good people of this country that work is progressing. The best thing we can do is to make sure that we speed up this process. And I can assure them that by the 12th of April, we will complete the tie-in. What good thing is this tie-in also doing? We are not only just tying, cutting, and joining as people estimate. We have also begun to expand the current capacity of 130 to over 405 standard cubic meters of gas per day. That is one expansion that we've done. Another thing we have also done is to provide opportunities for the future, because we are forward-looking government. We are not looking at elections. We are looking at the future. So we begin to provide opportunities for future expansion. The government idea of one district, one factory had made us to add more valves so that in future, power agencies or other industries that want to rely on gas can easily tap in without shutdown. Without shutdown, because we are learning from our experience. So Ghanaians, we are sorry, this short period is just intermittent. And I can promise you that from 12th of April, when the tie-in is completed, you will continue to enjoy sustainable use of your power. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. It looks like you were expecting the question. You answered it so well. Thank you very much. We have a question, maybe the Minister for Finance, on the bailout and the people who are walking around free. So what do you want to say on that?
Mr. Vice President, I certainly don't look like the AG, but I think it's an issue that the central bank is dealing with and has sent all the appropriate information that it needs to send to the security agencies. So like you, we spend, some 12 billion CDs or so in that. And it's 12 billion that I'd rather use for other things, such as capital expenditure. There was a question on capital expenditure. And I think we are spending about 4.3% of our GDP currently.
Yes.
But if you look at what we are going to add of Sino-Hydro, that's another 2%. And then we are also securitizing GetFund to be able to get resources. That's another 1.5 billion. So that takes us to over 9%. Now, there's also now a real philosophical issue about how to categorize education and whether it is just goods and services or whether it is real capital expenditure. And I think the thinking is beginning to feel clearly that that's capital X. And that's why the President pushed on all of these issues of senior high and how to get technical education for us. Because with that is really the rubric of the infrastructure that we need for the future. So when you look at it, you say that we may be even close to 10% or more as we are currently doing. Thank you very much.
Very much. So we take the next set of questions.
Actually, Excellency, we're left with just two final questions. There was a lady first who we earlier identified, and then we'll give the gentleman the last word. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I just want to ask this from the Energy Minister, that whilst we are waiting for these 12 April thing. Can't you or the energy sector give us a schedule so that we will be aware when our power would go off and when our power will come? And again, to the Vice President, your microeconomic indicators were good, but I want to ask that, of course, when we go out, the opposition is going to say that you said a lot, but the question is, how is it translating into our pockets? So please tell us how these indicators would actually translate into our pockets.
I'll give the gentleman the final word. Yes, sir.
My name is James Kofiotu, concerned citizen from Komenda Negua for Abrim. Yeah. Fantastic delivery by the Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Baumia. Fantastic work by the EMT. I appreciate the work so much. In fact, my question goes to the Trade Minister, who is also from that area. About last month ago, I heard this Bakers Association of Bread Bakers Association of Ghana from Kumasi chapter complaining about the CD depreciation because they import sugar. This government is a doing government. He has started the work that predecessors did. He has started the work doing. To ask what they are going to do about the Komenda Sugar Factory, because the youth there needs employment. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody here for all your questions. I'm sure we can give everybody a big round of applause for the kind of questions that have come in. Excellency.
Thank you very much. Peter, Minister for Energy, is there a schedule?
Mr. Vice President, yes, we've directed the various agencies to provide information to areas that would not experience lights being on. Mr. Vice President, it's also important to know that these agencies have their own internal mechanism. For instance, I'm told in Ashanti region, most of these areas have already been informed prior to the shutdown. I'm quite surprised why some of the areas are not receiving those information here in Accra, because I always have it on my notice. They send me a notice that these areas would not, be able to experience a light on. But Mr. Vice President, we still insist, from looking at the participants, the need, we still insist that we intensify, some work so that the people who will be out of light, of course, they will be made to be aware that they will not experience light during the period.
Thank you very much. Minister for Monitoring and Evaluation, we say we have good macroeconomic indicators, and how do we translate that into the pockets of people?
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice. I thought you'd give it to the Minister of Finance. But since you've asked me to, I'll try and mention a few areas. I pay a lot of school fees in my constituency. And I know that since the free SHS came, the number of people coming to me for school fees has gone down. So in my pocket, at least, I can feel it. And I'm sure a lot of parents are feeling it. It is true that when the macro fundamentals are good, we expect it to translate into the micro. I think Honorable Alan Chabantin tried to tell us that the time is coming for all of us to feel it in our pockets. We needed to stabilize the macro. But once you get jobs, you'll be feeling it in your pocket. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the other question is on the Comenda's sugar factory. Minister for Trade, that was yours.
Mr. Vice President, I'm sure we are all aware that the Komenda Sugar Factory, right from inception, had very serious technical and financial challenges. I mean, you have a situation where a factory of that size, $35 million valuation at the time that it was completed, but there was no plan or program for the raw material base that would feed into the production process. In actual fact, when we took over, the plant itself technically, although it had been commissioned, it was not in a position to produce refined sugar. The process would go up to a certain stage. You needed to complete the technical configuration before it will run on a profitable basis. So government took a strategic decision at cabinet that, look, this ought not to have happened in the first place, but we are saddled with this, and that we needed to find a way out to reduce our losses. So we commissioned a new exercise to attract some other strategic investors. So I'm pleased to announce that this has been going on for some time. And last week, we had a short list of about 4 companies with, well, I would say, attractive proposals. And now we are in a position to recommend to Cabinet for a final selection of a new strategic investor who hopes to be able to integrate the plantation development into the factory that is sitting idle. And so hopefully within the next couple of weeks, I'm sure that there will be a public announcement on that. And Komenda should be back in terms of its long-term sustainability. Thank you, Excellency.
The Minister for Finance will add a few comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. I think the question about how it translates into our pockets is truly a very important question. And it's important because I would want us to understand where we were, as the Vice President has said, and where we are, and truly where we want to go. And to also appreciate sort of the sacrifices that we all have to make in that interim period. And when you see the amount of work that has been described by the EMT, it is clear as to the vision that the President wants and the type of work that is going on. And there will be honest mistakes, on the way. But clearly, the focus on our human capital so that there will be social justice in the distribution of what we have. And the key thing to make us ready for the future, I think, are those things that we need to contemplate. And we need to build a broad consensus such that the margins that we disagree are really shrunk. You go to Norway and there's literally 80–85% consensus on what the citizen's role is and where the country is going. So that when we talk about opposition, it's not destructive and it does not sow seeds of an unequal distribution. So we see an economy, for we at the Ministry of Finance, is how do we keep this economy stable so that the individual entrepreneur then can get access to finances at rates that we can support. How do we bring these lending rates down, even as the Bank of Ghana continues to make really strong efforts, to help us clean the banking system so that the chassis is strong and it can redistribute? How do we ensure that even in that process, Ghanaians are placed first, and therefore how do you save some Ghanaian banks who were solvent? I think those are the issues that sometimes we need to contemplate. So yes, we'll continue to look at stabilizing the economy. It's first and foremost, and nobody should really belittle that, about you can't eat it or you can eat it, etc. Because without that, the capacity to build into the future, is jeopardized. So I really, especially for also those in the middle class, to be able to really break down, what has been done and ask questions if I'm in the opposition and I tell you something, to really throw back the question at that person. Because if I look at the indices that were shown, 2014, 2016, and 2018, and for us to then pretend that really nothing has happened, and you take a marginal issue and blow it into a state that does not help us, I think it's a disservice to the Republic. But for us, we will continue to work looking beyond elections to make sure that every Ghanaian is part of this new transformation and opportunity that the President has given us the mandate to do. Thank you very much, sir.
You want to say something? The senior minister has caught the bag. He wants to say something.
Mr. Vice President, sometimes people play politics with these indicators to a very ridiculous end. And we must, particularly if you have this level of audience, try to put meaning to these indicators. Without oil, President Kufuor moved the growth of the economy from 3.7 to 9.2 without oil. GDP is nothing more than the total productivity of the whole economy, everybody's input included. That's the measurement of GDP. Without oil, then oil hitting, and it went up naturally to 14.1 thereabout. With the oil continuously flowing, the GDP is brought down to 3.4. There must be something wrong with the management of the economy. There must be something fundamentally wrong with the management of the economy. And if anybody who's brought down the growth from 14% there around to 3.4, and within 2 years it's taken to 7.5 and now heading towards 8, want to be given the chance to manage the economy again? See, we've got to be practical. Money in your pocket means the economy growing. When you grow, you create employment. That's the meaning of growth. So when somebody manages to bring it to that level, it was creating employment. Now, the way things are going, the IMF former managing director made a point. He said inflation is the enemy of the poor. And that is what it is. When inflation goes up, purchasing power and all this of everybody gets reduced because the rate of prices are going up higher than what is coming into your pocket. The rich can afford it, but the poor keeps on losing on it. So if you have a government that's bringing down inflation consistently, it is enriching the poor. And therefore, we should not make it look like these indicators mean nothing. They mean something. They mean something. And I would want all of us here to, and on behalf of my colleagues, say a very big thank you to the type of leadership the EMT has enjoyed from Dr. Bawumia. A chairman who is so involved in the work of he works like a member, like a secretary. It's sterling quality, professionally excellent. So we are where we are because Dr. Bawumia is putting up a very professional chairmanship to the EMT. And I pray that we continue to work together as a team. Because this is in the interest of Ghana, not in the individual. When the economy improves, all other things improve. And it's a duty of the managers of the economy to make sure that the economy improves. And the EMT, for now, is doing exactly that. Thank you very much.
I think the senior minister started the vote of thanks for us. Your Excellency, the Vice President, members of the EMT, first we want to say thank you that you have elected, you didn't even agree, you elected to bring the EMT out to meet the Ghanaian public, to explain where we have been so far, and also to take questions and feedback. I think even as we go about this conversation of engaging the citizen, this is a huge demonstration that is unparalleled, whether in the sub-region or on the rest of the continent. I think we can give the EMT a big round of applause. We also want to thank the people of Ghana who have made time across sectors to be here, to listen, to watch both here and on television, and also to give feedback and to raise your questions. We want to thank our friends who are operating from the media, who have carried this event live on multiple networks here in Accra and across the country. We want to thank the planning committee, the EMT secretariat, the staff at the Ministry of Information who have worked tirelessly to put the logistics together. We say a big thank you to you all. I want to invite Honorable Pius Hajide to help us do the final protocols and then wrap up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, Your Excellency, Vice President, Your Excellencies, members of the diplomatic corps, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. All that starts well, ends well, and we are also grateful to the police band. You have been here with us. We are grateful to the Supreme Sign Institute. Ours is a government that wants to promote inclusion, and it was important that our friends from the Supreme Sign Institute join us to give us sign language interpretation.
It's been about 4 hours of listening to Vice President Dr. Bawumia and members of the economic management team giving us our status, the progress we've made, and what we should expect in the future. It's been quite interesting, the comments, the questions, the response, and basically the Vice President decided to speak about the exchange rate and make reference to some comments he made in the past, mentioning that it's still the same now, but trying to tease out the differences between how the fundamentals at the time in 2014 affected the cedi's depreciation and why it may not be same for now. I've still got Norvan Akwa-Hayford with me in the studio. Norvan, so energy, ports, exchange rates, spoke a bit about debt.
Yeah.
Which of these was the highlight for you?
I think that the ports was very key for me, the cedi, and then just as you said, the energy sector, because I mean these are things that affect almost all of us. As for the macroeconomic indicators, I mean, as the Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Bawumia did indicate, the figures are there, and figures or facts are sacred. You look at it and you're able to respond to it as you should. And one of the things that was interesting for me when he said, well, these are the figures we have. If you have anything different, bring it. Let's have a look at what you have. But this is what we know is available. Now let's take the ports. Interesting announcement that was made when it comes to importation in this country to say that effective tomorrow, which is 4th of April, all general importation duties are to be cut by 50%. I just hope that the revenue agencies, that's customs, and then all other authorities operating at the port have been informed. The right adjustments have been done to their systems, especially when we're running a paperless system. These adjustments have been done so we don't see chaos tomorrow at the port. This is good news for these importers. But it's interesting to note, one of the ladies, and then I think another gentleman asked a question, and he said, listen, linking this to the exchange rate, they are looking forward to having a fixed exchange rate at the port. And some said, let's have it for the first quarter. So what it meant is that, let's just say that at the port when you are importing, the rate at which you should be charged according to the dollar should be, let's say, 5 cedis, 20 pesos. So for the next 3 months, no matter what happens in the market, let's fix it there. For the next 3 months, let's come back again after 3 months and review it based on what we have seen. So even if the cedi decides to drop to 4.5, so long as we have fixed the thing at the 5.2 for the next 3 months, that is where we're going to be keeping it. And that's what they are asking for. It is like hedging when you talk of when we decide to hedge in terms of buying crude oil into the country. And I think that they are doing that because you don't normally see the CD drop so much as it should, you know.
Well, no, Ferdinand, we were also told no duty, no exit, and this is with regards to those who use Ghana as transit to other neighboring countries. There will be a lot more analysis here on the Joy News channel. You want to stay with us.